Welcome friends to another r/malicious-compliance video. As always, if you enjoy this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And our first story of the day is by Tato's Sandwich. A manager told me to not do part of my job, so I didn't. This was a few years ago when I worked in a 4-star hotel chain that would be very well known and was part of a larger company that had hotels of varying status. I was about 24. There were a few of us who worked primarily in room service, and the breakfast shift was always a solo shift. One morning I started, and as was customary, I started doing my prep, folding napkins, setting up 5 or 6 trays with pastries, etc. per the pre-ordered breakfast cards. So I would only need to grab the correct tea and coffee and hot food later, as well as a few extra all-purpose trays for the people who call for room service last minute. I just get finished with this when the duty manager, I can't remember his full name but the nickname was Prem, bursts into the kitchen with a dirty plate in hand and sees me in my area while putting it in the pile of dishes for the kitchen porter. He yells across the kitchen, "What are you doing? It's so crazy out there that I have to help clear tables and you're back here? Get out and help." I replied that I had not gone up and walked the halls to collect the trays left out overnight yet, and he yelled some more and repeated that if he, a manager, is clearing tables, I better help regardless of if my job is actually in a different area. For the record, Prem was a menace. I witnessed him yell in college girls' faces until they cried several times. He would also routinely pick on anyone that was minimum wage floor staff. So I walk into the restaurant and the supervisor Jen is at the door and sees me walk in. She covers for room service and has worked it in the past, so she knows I should be collecting trays now so that the place doesn't look like a war zone upstairs. She asks if I've done this, and I say no. Prem sent me in to help because it's so busy. She says it's not very busy at all, they don't need me, and I should go upstairs and collect the dirty trays. I walk back into the kitchen and Prem is still standing there. "What are you doing? I told you to go in and help." I went in, and Jen said they don't need me and told me to collect trays. He then accuses me of going to her and asking if I can go collect trays instead of helping, so I tell him he can go in and ask her if she called me or if I approached her. This satisfies him that I'm at least not lying, but he's still not happy. He says, "I'm the duty manager." Manager. Jen is a supervisor. I'm higher up, so you do what I tell you. Go in there and help clear tables. I don't want to see you going up to collect trays. I go back into the restaurant and Jen looks at me confused. I tell her that Prem insists that I help and won't let me go upstairs and says he outranks her, so she says I should join the guys at Station 1 and help their area. Breakfast passes and I pop out a few times to do my room services and come back with not much issue. My shift is until 3 p.m. and breakfast ended at 10:30 a.m. At this point, nobody's been upstairs and housekeeping will have been putting out dirty trays. I get a call on the room service mobile from a housekeeping manager that says floor 4 has a dozen or so trays in the hall. I say I'm sorry, the duty manager's prioritized other areas at the moment and has said I cannot go up. I start doing my afternoon prep, polishing cutlery and the like. About 12 p.m. I get another call, this time from the housekeeping's top manager. She tells me there's trays everywhere, and I politely apologize and explain that my duty manager has used the exact words, "I don't want to see you going up to collect trays." She accepts this without question and asks that I help when I can. At 2 p.m., I get a call from the hotel's director of operations regarding the trays. At this point, there's trays in the hallways on all 7 floors, and the place looks filthy. Again, I politely explain what instructions I've received from Prem, and this is accepted without further question, and he says he will inquire into it. 3 p.m. arrives, and I've not heard of anything else, nor have I cleaned up the pigsty upstairs. My replacement arrives, and I tell him what happened and apologize for the fact that he'll have to collect these, but tell him why. He laughs and decides to leave it until somebody else calls and informs him they're there. Shortly after this, Prem left the company. Would you guys agree that dirty trays outside in the halls are way worse than dirty trays left on the tables inside whatever eating area they have? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Warlover1. Okay, I quit then. In high school, I got a part-time job at a food store we would call no skills. At the time, minimum wage was $5.15 an hour, and they paid $9 an hour if you worked graveyards. That was killer money, so I worked graveyards Friday and Saturday nights during the school year. I got in at 8 p.m. and left about 7 in the morning. Black Friday was coming up in about a month, and my friends like to go out and shop around for fun. I requested to leave early at 10 a month in advance, which was approved by the cool manager I'll call Charlie. That night comes, and the jerk manager is working. We'll call him Dave. Dave decided to give the night off to 2 other employees, leaving us very short-staffed. I, of course, requested my time off a month ago, so whatever, not my issue. I get into work and let him know I'm leaving at 10 just as a reminder. His response was, "We'll see how far along we are by then and see." I didn't like how he phrased that, but I thought, whatever, I'm leaving anyway. So it's about 9:50, I've been working my butt off stocking shelves to get as much done as possible and go to let him know I'm leaving. He stares at me and says we're too far behind and I can't leave and to come ask him at 11 instead. I tell him no, I have plans and took it off, so I'm heading out. He starts to grumble to himself, gives this little speech about how everyone else will have to stay super late if I go, yada yada. I say I'm still leaving. I took it off a month ago, so it was known well in advance. He stares at me and tells me if I leave, I shouldn't bother coming back and that I'll be fired. High school me says that's not fair and whatnot, then he just says I can stay or lose my job. The job is just so I can have spending money, but he seems to think I'm like some other staff who actually need the job and can be bullied around. I just tell him, okay, I quit, and started to walk away. He tried to say something, but he just mumbled as he had no idea what to say. He never expected me to actually leave. The next day, Charlie calls me up and apologizes for what happened and asks if I really wanted to quit. I told him no and about what happened. He assured me Dave would leave me alone and had been talked to. I later found out he was also no longer allowed to approve time off anymore since he left the store so short-handed and the morning crew actually had to help stock the shelves because it still wasn't done. Bonus story, I did stay working there and over the summer went full-time. A buddy of mine was jealous of the money I made and also got a job there working graveyards with me. Part of the job is facing the aisles before leaving to make it look all pretty. The whole team would tackle the aisles together so we can talk while doing it. With my buddy being new, we played a little joke and told him that part of facing includes shaking all the salad dressings as they would settle during the day. We left it to him and moved on, and about 2 aisles later, we noticed he's still not with us, and Charlie, who would help us face when his duties were done, asked where he was. We told him the joke and went back to check on him. To our amazement, he was with the dressings shaking them and had already shaken most of them already. We figured he was being a smart butt and was doing it so he didn't have to face, but when we told him it was a joke, he got pretty pissed off, which made it even funnier. What Dave did here absolutely upsets me. Like OP mentioned, a lot of people who end up working in places like these need that money desperately. So the fact that somebody like OP took that time off a month in advance, and then finally when that day finally comes along, Dave the manager says, if you take that time off that you scheduled off a month ago, you're fired and you're gonna lose this job. It's like, how much of a grade A jerk can you be? This next story is by TalkMuck181. Sorry, overtime isn't approved. So this story dates back to when I was 20. I happened to work at Mr. Walton's club, and my store manager was kind of a jerk to me. So I didn't enjoy the job and really was only there because I happened to work a night shift of 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, 30 minutes unpaid lunch. To be honest, it was my first non-third shift job and I really liked what I did because it was easy and I got away with pretty much doing nothing. I was part of the maintenance crew that would help by cleaning things, helping where needed, handling spills, etc. For those of you who don't know, the Walton companies do not like overtime at all. At all. I've been pulled into the office for getting 3 to 7 minutes of overtime 4 weeks in a row. So I worked my daily morning shift Monday to Friday with the very occasional Saturday because the Saturday guy was off and I had to cover. Okay, I don't mind the occasional Saturday with Monday off. I would even stay late some days because something would happen and they would need my help. I wasn't a go-getter, but I would definitely help where needed and stay busy. However, if I stayed late, I would have to leave early a different day to keep my 40 hours. What I would not do is work a different shift completely without being asked. One week, I saw I was on schedule for second shift because the second shifter asked off. I didn't get an option. They just scheduled me. I brought it to my boss's attention, and he basically told me to suck it up. Cue my thought of malicious compliance. That second shift day happened to be at the end of my work week, so I made sure to show up a little early and stay a little late every day before that, upwards of 2 hours one day. I stayed busy working and doing things that needed to be done, but definitely didn't need my somewhat slow pace. My second shift day comes, I go into work at about 12 or 1 p.m. and stay about an hour and a half, and walk up to one of my assistant managers and inform her that I'm about 10 minutes from overtime. Do you want me to stay or should I go home? She informed me I should go home and have a nice day. About 45 minutes later, after, I'm at home enjoying a cookout with my girlfriend and friends. I get a call from work. Curious, I answer and it's my manager. He says, "Hey OP, where are you? We've had a spill and been calling you on the walkie for 20 minutes. I informed him that I was at my 40 hours already, and didn't assistant manager tell you? He says, "Oh, okay, she didn't tell me. See you tomorrow." I said, "Okay, have a nice day," and proceeded to enjoy the rest of my night. For some reason, I was never scheduled for second shift again. I definitely don't blame OP. If there's some loopholes you can use to get out of being scheduled awkwardly, and you know you can use it in such a way that you end up enjoying a cookout with your girlfriend and friends, seems like a nice no-brainer to me. And our final story of the day is by RWESO. You can't pick up extra time because you've had too many sick days. I'm a nurse at a large hospital. The floor I worked on was selected to be the COVID unit during the first and second waves. More nurses than not were catching COVID, so whenever I got an inkling of being sick, I would call out and get tested. Now, if I tested positive, then I would get the 2 weeks off without penalty, but I tested negative and returned to work. I get called into the office and got a verbal warning because I had one too many sick days. I said to my manager, "You realize we're in a pandemic, right?" She says, "Yes, I know that, but we still have to stick to the original policy." When we clock in, there's an electronic message that pops up on the time clock that reads, "During the pandemic, we need to self-monitor ourselves, and by clocking in, you are declaring that you are fit to work." There was no adjustment to the policy, even though we were a COVID unit during a pandemic. So I would either have to lie about feeling sick when I clock in, or call out and get in trouble. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. I had always picked up a lot of extra time in a sister department, not because I needed the extra money, but because the hospital was always short-staffed. My manager didn't like the fact that I picked up extra time in the other department. She wanted me to pick up extra time in our department, so she said, "As punishment, you cannot pick up extra time in the other departments for 90 days, the length of my disciplinary period. You should be responsible enough to pick up extra time in your own department." As I didn't need the extra money, I didn't pick up any extra time in that period. I got called almost every day to ask if I could come in because they were short-staffed. One of the reasons they were short-staffed was because our sister unit was even more short-staffed, and the nurses on my unit were getting pulled to go work there. If only more nurses picked up extra time on the other unit. At the end of the 90 days, I was told I could pick up extra time in the sister department again, at which point, I handed in my 2 weeks notice and told her I accepted a position at another hospital. She then tells me that because of my years of service, I need to give 4 weeks notice. I tell her, no, that's just a courtesy, so I'll extend the same courtesy I got when I needed to call out sick. "Hey man, listen, it's in the policy. We gotta stick to it. I know everybody's getting sick around here and a lot of people are dying, but the policy is the policy." I feel like it shouldn't be a surprise that the person's not going to give courtesy or flattering extra help in return that the policy doesn't outline when they get treated that way. As far as I'm concerned, OP did everything right in my books, and I think it is just frankly insane that when the worst comes to the worst and you're deep in a pandemic and you're literally the frontline workers in this situation, they have the audacity to basically say to OP's face, "Stop being so overly concerned at the slightest hint of feeling sick." But with that being said, that's a wrap on another bunch of stories here today. As always, if you guys have any favorite videos of this bunch, let me know which one in the comments down below and why. And if you enjoyed the stories in general, if you could subscribe to this channel, it'd mean a lot to me. I make these videos daily, and it's by far and away the best way to support my channel. So no matter what you did, whether it was subscribing or liking, leaving a comment, I just appreciate the heck out of you guys. And as always, I'll be back tomorrow with even more stories right here on the Storytime channel.